And good evening and welcome to the World YouTube Washington report for this evening, April 10th, 2025. President Trump had a cabinet meeting today, and I love it when he goes around the table like that and asks his different secretaries to give him an update. Very informative. Played some of it today on radio at 1 o'clock Central. But I want to talk to our DC reporter about it. Jim, welcome back. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
And Jim, tell our audience about your website real quick, if you would.
Yeah, theconservativecaucus.org. You can find out what we're doing to help protect liberty here in the United States and build a boots-on-the-ground network of people who for change, and also stand up for the Constitution and kind of get us back to a constitutional republic.
And you got an event coming up in April, right?
We do in Chicago. Yep. We got a whole load of speakers, including Rob Blagojevich and some others, April 23rd at the Drake Oak Brook, Illinois in Chicago, Illinois area. And I hope everyone can come that lives in the area.
Excellent. Excellent. Full details on his website. All right. I want to go right away to a clip from today. Elon Musk. I love this going around the table, by the way. Have you ever seen a president do that? Because I said on TV today, radio at 1 o'clock Central, it reminded me of An Apprentice, where Donald Trump's sitting there and talking to people around a boardroom table. I don't remember in my lifetime a president giving secretaries the opportunity on a regular basis to just freely talk and update him and the American people in real time. Do you remember that?
Well, this is unique. Now, it's not uncommon for various agency heads to say something in the public-facing cabinet meeting. By the way, the entire cabinet meeting you're seeing on television, too. Some presidents in the past have that cabinet meeting closed as well, and for portions of it. So very transparent, and it does give everyone, I think Donald Trump knows he's got a good team of people, and he also is aware that when they can make statements in public and be recognized, that's really helpful in moving forward a message. So he's very telegenic and very understanding of TV presence and how important that is.
But I don't remember a president going around the room like that. And doing this on like almost every 2 weeks, you're seeing this. I don't remember any president doing that. One might speak, one may say something. You can tell it's very controlled. They probably have notes in front of them. But this is like people are speaking off the cuff all the way around the table.
No, in many presidencies, there's no discussion at all. They allow the reporters to come in and take pictures before they close the doors. So, yeah, this is it's unprecedented, frankly.
Unprecedented indeed. Listen to this, and I think I'm going to try to get my earpiece replaced, Logan. But listen to this. Here's Elon on Doge, what they're up to.
Well, thanks to your fantastic leadership, this amazing cabinet, and the very talented Doge team, I'm excited to announce that we anticipate savings in FY26 from reduction of waste and fraud by $150 billion. And I mean, and some of it is just absurd, like people getting unemployment insurance who haven't been born yet. I mean, I think anyone can appreciate whether, I mean, come on, that's just crazy. So, you know, some of these things, if people ask me like, well, how are you going to find waste and fraud in the government? I'm like, well, actually just go in any direction. That's how you find it. It's very common. it's as the military would say, target-rich environment. So I think we're doing a lot of good and excellent collaboration with the cabinet to achieve these savings. And it'll actually result in better services for the American people, and that we're going to be spending their tax dollars in a way that is sensible and fair and good.
And your people are fantastic. In fact, hopefully they'll stay around for the long haul. We'd like to keep as many as we can. They're great, smart, sharp, right? Finding things that nobody would have thought of.
There you go. Smart and sharp. You want to comment on that, Jim?
Listen, what he is doing is really groundbreaking. There is no effective way to cut government spending than the approach Doge is undertaking. And there have been some efforts which have had some moderate degree of success in the Clinton administration. Obama feigned doing it. I don't think he actually really did do it. But doing this in an independent fashion outside, well, in cooperation with agency heads that are willing to cooperate, but also with some internal authority on behalf of the president to really, make these agencies comply. And one other thing to point out, too, Russ Vought, who's OMB director right now, again, he was also OMB director for a period of time in the previous Trump administration. He was trying to do some of these things as much as he could. He was getting constant pushback from the agencies. But the key factor here that's going to make this most successful is DOJ is able to do all the research and provide all the receipts, and the OMB director has a lot of power and authority to implement, and that's going to be really helpful.
150 billion, but that's just a drop in the bucket. I think what they're going to find. I think it was Tulsi Gabbard that said that fraud and corruption is just everywhere.
Well, government, we should understand, government by its very nature is corrupt. Why is it we have the Constitution which restricts the government so severely? Like, we're not really under that constitutional republic anymore in a full measure. If you read Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, which shows the authority that Congress has to appropriate funds and to put taxes in place, there is just not, we're doing 80% of it off of the outside of that construct. The reason the founding fathers wanted to so severely restrict government is because of the tendency towards fraud and abuse and corruption that inherently comes with money sloshing around in any government endeavor of any sort.
Yeah, absolutely. We also, of course, I'm going to deal with it on Brain House Live tonight. Tulsi Gabbard, she came out today and said, this is wonderful. I love this. Listen to this.
I've got a long list of things that we're investigating. We have the best of the best going after this. Election integrity being one of them. We have evidence of how these electronic voting systems have been vulnerable to hackers for a very long time and vulnerable to exploitation to manipulate the results of the votes being cast, which further drives forward your mandate to bring about paper ballots across the country so that voters can have faith in the integrity of our election.
So he's going hardcore on the paper, one-day voting. Now, today, all the Democrats voted against a bill that would require an ID to vote in federal election. So clearly the Democrats realize the only way they can win elections is to steal them by and large. But this is also why they love these machines, right? The Uniparty, I'm not going to just put this on Democrats, the Uniparty seems to love the machines. So here she is, Tulsi, sitting in a cabinet meeting today saying, we've got evidence these machines can be hacked and votes flipped. Jim?
It's absolutely true that is there by the very nature of it being computer systems. And now that we've known for some years that these systems are hooked up to the internet, there's an interesting system in India where they've got these electronic devices that don't hook up to the internet, and there's no software on them. It's all burned in to the cards, and it's effective, and they're able to tally the votes properly. It's very similar to people from Gen X or baby boomers who are familiar with these lever machines, these mechanical lever machines. That's what they do in India. But the computer systems are inherently problematic. Even if you don't hook it up to the internet, if you have any USB port, you can put something in and make it vulnerable, make changes if someone can sneak it up there. The worst part about it is this: you cannot physically track the effort of the voter to choose a person on the touch screen and how that went directly to the tally. You can do that very simply with paper. You can do that with, as I say, the mechanical machines that I talked about, but computers don't allow that. The best confidence we can have is if we can gather up all the people who voted again and then got their paper receipt. That might help us. But again, we don't even know if that receipt's highly accurate. We'd have to. It's a cumbersome process to have transparency in computer voting, and it should be eliminated entirely, in my opinion.
Joe Kent testifying today or yesterday. Check this timestamp on it. I guess that was yesterday. Listen to this. Very interesting conversation here. Listen to this related to January 6th.
This concerns January 6th. Do you believe that the violence on January 6th was intentionally organized or directed?
Still under investigation. We're looking into whether elements of the government could have enhanced the criminal acuity of some of the rioters that day.
So you've said on Twitter that the FBI and the intelligence community were involved in planning and directing the riot. Is that correct?
Sounds like something I said, yeah.
And what evidence do you have for that claim?
So we've already identified that there were multiple confidential human informants ran by the FBI and other law enforcement agencies that were present in the crowd that day, directing, removing barriers, those types of things. This has been investigated widely. We're continuing to look into it. The intelligence, I would say the FBI and other elements of the law enforcement apparatus attempted to suppress the fact that there was undercover confidential human informants that were part of these different groups. We also had intelligence leading up to January 6th that there was going to be violence that day. So that speaks to some degree of intelligence infiltration into some of these groups.
Who within the FBI?
We're looking into that right now.
Which departments of the FBI?
Probably the Washington field office.
So you believe the Washington field office was involved in the planning of the violence in the building next door on January 6th?
It's being looked into. I mean, look, we had
and who is looking into it?
That we are in the intelligence community. Yeah, we're looking into it right now.
And do you believe that the IC conducts actions of this nature against Americans?
Does the IC, well, the FBI and other law enforcement agencies entrapping individuals? If you look at who was running the Washington field office during January 6th, it was Stephen DeAntuono. He was also running the field office in Michigan, where many of the defendants were let go after they were accused of attempting to kidnap the governor, because the vast majority of them were undercover FBI confidential informants. So unfortunately, this behavior does happen by members of law enforcement and the intelligence community, and it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we are transparent with the American people.
Mr. Kent, would you be willing to share this evidence of this investigation with this committee?
Of course, I'm sure he's going to as soon as they get done with it, but he probably needs to finish his investigation. I had the privilege of interviewing Joe in person, I think a couple times on Zoom or Skype or whatever we use, but certainly in person at CPAC what's that, Logan? Oh yeah, the power went out when I was interviewing him. We were sitting there doing an interview and the power went out. We were sitting in the dark at CPAC waiting for the power to come back up. And President Trump was supposed to be there, I think, the next day and in between his two terms. And we didn't know what was going on. I just said to Logan and my wife, this guy is former Special Forces. If he starts to go, we're right behind him. We're following him out of here. But we sat there and chit-chatted, on a personal level, waiting for the power to come back up so we could restart the interview, and we did. Never did we think I wasn't sure we'd ever see a second Trump term. Here we are, and now he's the director of the Counterterrorism Division. Pretty impressive. He's now saying, look, we got evidence that our own FBI and DC field office was involved in this. And I think Ed Martin, the acting U.S. District Attorney, who has been in this studio here and guest host a show in our network about 50 times, we think the world of Ed Martin. We pray he gets confirmed, and we ask our audience to pray he gets confirmed. But I think he's looking into this as well. I think there are multiple people inside Trump's world that are looking into this. What say you?
Yeah, I know Ed too, and I think he's a fantastic choice for that office. He would be very, very strong. Listen, everything that Joe Kent said by reports that have come out and through other evidence that we've all been able to see, is accurate. Now, for all the details and putting all of the strings together, we don't know. But one thing we know, not just in this case, but in many cases, and the supposed attempt to kidnap Governor Whitmer in Michigan highlights a standard procedure in FBI that they use quite often to entrap people into crimes. And this is something that I don't necessarily believe the assertion that they stirred up all the violence on January 6th. There were some angry people about what had happened, but it was not even a handful, the total number of people that were there. There were tens of thousands of people who went over to the Capitol that day. But do not be surprised when we find out that there were definitely FBI informants and agitators in that crowd. Thomas Massey, my former boss, he's documented some of this stuff too. He's gotten a lot of this information as well. This is a real problem that we need to address. We need to resolve it. And we need to understand that it was an the attempted coup was not people going around breaking windows around the Capitol. The attempted coup was twisting that into putting every Trump supporter of any stripe anywhere in the country under suspicion. And this is why we saw an expansion in the FBI of investigating churches, of arresting people in an absurd manner, using in front of abortion clinics, using the FACE Act when they were praying. And in fact, when the FACE Act was passed, which is an unconstitutional law, in my opinion, there were exceptions to people being non-active, just doing praying and that sort of thing. So we weaponized our entire government against Trump supporters in an attempt by Democrats to hold on to power in perpetuity in this country. It was literally third world what happened after that. And what happened on that day on January 6th is likely just as third world and skewed as anything we've ever seen in history.
Wow. Today we had the passage here. Anna Paulina Luna, Congresswoman, put out on X. We just successfully passed both the SAVE Act as well as the House budget. We are also, 216 to 214, by the way, we are also codifying permanently ending taxes on tips and Social Security. To be clear, the only reason why the budget passed is because President Trump was actively involved and is truly one of the best negotiators I've ever met. He's doing great things for this country. Thank you, POTUS. 214 to 216. Wow. And of course, we had some Republicans vote against it, did we not?
Yeah, Thomas Massey and who else was it? Victoria Sparks of Indiana voted no on this. Mm-hmm. When I'm looking at this bill, I was actually, as we talked about earlier in the week, I was very frustrated with the Senate version only projecting cuts of $4 billion over 10 years. And this is going to apparently bring about $1.5 trillion of cuts in 10 years. You had Speaker Johnson say, you can kick me out of the speakership if I don't keep these promises. Well, that's pretty interesting. I can tell you, because I know the people that want to are inclined to do the motion to vacate stuff, and they will be more than willing to take that on. And you just might find enough people, if he doesn't keep those promises, really doing again what happened when Matt Gaetz really caused a stir in the House just before the elections 2 years ago. So
here is Speaker Johnson. Actually, here he is.
Yep.
It's a good day in the House. I told you not to doubt us. The media always does. The Democrats always do. But we get the job done, and we're really grateful to have had the big victory on the floor just now. It was a big one, a very important one. The big news today, of course, is that we passed the budget resolution. We adopted the Senate's amendments to the resolution, holding in place all of the commitments and the instructions, the guidelines that the House originally enacted. And that was a big step, because that will allow us now to move forward, to have our committees actually drafting the one big beautiful bill. There's a lot of work ahead of us, and we're really excited about that. In November, the American people delivered unified government to the Republican Party. They returned President Donald J. Trump to the White House. They gave us control of the House and the Senate, and we are going to make good by that. We have a big responsibility. In The budget reconciliation bill, the reason we call it the One Big Beautiful Bill, everybody in this crowd of journalists knows that all the components that will be in that. We're talking about ensuring that the border is secure, having the resources that are necessary to do that. We're talking about getting the American economy going again by reducing regulations. We're talking about restoring peace through strength and making sure we have the measures in place to properly fund those priorities. We have a lot of things, American energy dominance, all the components that will make things better for Americans, drive down the cost of living, and get our economy really going again. And of course, not the least of which, the big components of the One Big Beautiful Bill is to ensure that we don't have the largest tax increase in U.S. history all at once, which is what would happen at the end of this year if we didn't accomplish this mission, because the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the tax cuts from the first Trump administration, as we know, would expire. So a big day for us. We will now get the committees operating on all cylinders. They'll be working over the 2-week district work period that encompasses Passover and Easter. They'll take a couple of days off for those holy celebrations and then keep their sleeves rolled up and get right back to work. The committees in the Senate and the House will be working in a collaborative fashion. We've explained this, that this really is a one-team approach by Republicans in both chambers. I'm so grateful to Leader Thune and his steady hand of leadership. We had a joint press conference this morning making our commitments known of what we're going to try to do. And that is ensure real savings for the American people, because we have to do that. We have a responsibility to get our country back on a sound fiscal trajectory, and also make sure that we ensure and protect those essential programs.
All right, there we go. You want to respond to that, Jim?
Good day in the House, and I told you not to doubt.
No worries. So listen, it's good news if we're going to cut $1.5 trillion. What people need to understand about what happened today, this is a process that was set up in the Budget Control Act of 1974, which set up a process of the Congress establishing a budget and then the appropriations committees coming in and filling in each of the sections of that budget. And it is broken up into different sections. There are 12 appropriations bills. If we follow regular order, there are 12 appropriations bills that have to be passed to fund the federal government. First of all, it's going to be amazing if they get all 12 of those bills passed. It would be the first time since 1998 that we did not provide some continuing resolution to fund parts of the budget where Congress had been either neglectful or unable to pass one of those 12 appropriations bills. That would be an amazing feat all by itself. The $1.5 trillion would also be an amazing feat, and that would make Mike Johnson an anomaly in Republican speakers, because we've not had a Republican speaker probably since the early part of Newt Gingrich's tenure that did anything substantive when it came to really doing the hard work that Congress must do to appropriate money in the fashion that they set for themselves. But keep in mind, and this is all relatively positive if all the promises do happen, which is a challenge because the appropriator, we call them the cardinals, in the heads of all the various subcommittees on House appropriations, we call the cardinals, because they determine everything in so much, I should say, in the House GOP caucus, and usually in a very bad way. So if he can corral these guys and gals to do what they ought to do, that would be something of a feat. But there still is going to be spending, even if that $1.5 trillion happens, that really should have been cut even further. In 2019, before COVID, the federal budget, the federal spend was right around $4.5 trillion. This year, this current fiscal year, it's nearly $7 trillion. If we spent at 2019 levels, pre-COVID levels, remember, we jacked up spending big time in COVID. If we spend at 2019 levels and adjusted for inflation, that would be roughly $5.37 trillion. That's how far off we are. $7 trillion is what we're spending, which keeps a lot of COVID spending, and $5.35 trillion, which is back to what was already a very bad spend. But so there's a lot of dirt and messiness here, but it would be potentially a good first step if Mike Johnson keeps his promises.
And of course, the Democrats voted against the SAVE Act, which would have required voter ID to vote in a federal election. What does that tell you about the Democrats?
Well, what it did require is that you cannot register to vote unless you show proof of citizenship, amongst other things in the bill. What it says about Democrats is they know they can't win American elections. We don't have American elections right now. We literally have more and more evidence mounting up as time goes on that non-citizens are voting in our elections, first of all. Secondly, we have massive irregularities in our elections just inherently due to unsolicited mail ballots that are going into other states and people in other states voting back in the state they used to live in. That, first of all, that's illegal. That's a crime. But we don't do anything about that. There are a myriad of things, as many people have heard, and these multi-day elections as well, too. There are a lot of irregularities in our elections that need to go away. Democrats have worked to build this system for more than a decade now, almost 2 decades, because they knew in the late 90s and early 2000s, their ability to get votes was unsustainable. And they knew they were going down the hill and didn't want to change. And they've radicalized since on the strength of being able to massage these elections. So their whole job is to, frankly, utilize systems that harm American values and the purpose of an American republic in order to maintain and obtain power. It's all about power for Democrats. It's not about the American people at all. It's hard enough to get Republicans to think about the American people, and they're doing a much better job with Donald Trump as president. But it's even worse that Democrats really have no regard for Americans.
Indeed. Anything else you were watching today out of D.C. you want to tell our audience before we wrap?
Well, no, I think that about covers it. I think we let me just double check something here. There was just the trade thing continues on. Listen, I think Donald Trump's still winning on this. I should kind of cap that. China is in a corner still. They're going to have to come to the table. This is resetting trade, it seems to me right now, in a way that we want. And that's good for America moving forward. And Donald Trump's great leadership is allowing that to happen. His willingness to take this risk. And it's a huge risk because he knows he's got to win in 2026 or he's just going right back into what he was in his very first term. He understands that and he keeps
They'll
moving
impeach
forward.
him again if they win the House.
I guarantee you he'll be going through impeachments. The only thing that won't be happening is I think we've reduced a bunch of the weaponization of government itself, even under his administration that he was dealing with. That's kind of settled, but he is going to have this nagging problem with Democrats in the Congress.
Do you see them going after him again legally after he's president? In other words, do you see them seeking to prosecute him all the way to the day he dies?
It's hard to say, Brandon. I think it is possible. These people are vindictive and evil. But that said, if they don't see the political risk, it's very unlikely that they're going to keep doing that. There will likely be some nagging things that will come his way, but it'll probably be fairly small. If Democrats cannot obtain power again, and they have the means to do so, you can be sure that they'll be very upset with Donald Trump, depending on what the outcome is after those 4 years. But I wouldn't put money on it. It's certainly a possibility. What you are going to see, though, they know how powerful these systems of lawfare and various things that they've created are, and they will use it against more weak-kneed Republicans. I mean, we need to find someone that has a similar spine. I don't know precisely who that is. I have hope in J.D. Vance. I have some hope in Ron DeSantis, people like Byron Donalds and some others that I could point to. But I don't know that they have quite that spine. So we have interesting years ahead.
Let me ask you quickly here. The guy that's been promoted inside the FBI that supposedly was hunting down J6ers, a lot of the MAGA crowd feels really betrayed. Why do you think that guy is being retained and then promoted?
I cannot tell for the life of me why they would even think about it. It looks bad just to begin with. So from a total public relations perspective, there's no need to have done it. And unless he brings something fabulous in terms of skill and capability to kind of take the hit on with the public on that, then why would you promote him? I'm still befuddled by it. I have no good answers. I'm And I will say, I think the American people and MAGA supporters are a little bit impatient with what they're seeing from both Pam Bondi and even Kash Patel. Although Kash has had a much better run here, they're waiting for stuff to get more powerful from them. And that doesn't help the case when Americans are already a little concerned about Pam Bondi in particular.
Indeed. The conservativecaucus.org, conservativecaucus.org. Jem, thanks for being with us. Folks, thank you for being with us. Take care. Tonight on the Worldview Report, President Trump pauses all reciprocal tariffs for 90 days, except for those on China, following the Chinese Communist Party's announcement of 84% retaliatory tariffs on all U.S. goods coming into China. The administration is in early stage discussions to conduct drone strikes on Mexican cartels. But will the Mexican government agree to cooperate? A father in Colorado exposes the shocking degree to which pornography is being made available to children in public elementary schools. A California man has admitted in court that he plans